In today's episode, we are going to learn about a special Python feature which allows you to create functions on the go. That's right, guys. We're going to be talking about alpacas. No, that's not it. Sheep. No, close. Lambda. That's right. I mean, it practically sounds like an animal name anyways, right? Lambda, lamb. I don't know, but that's right. Now, these little guys are we like to call them anonymous functions, are functions without a name. By learning this advanced Python topic, you're going to become a better and stronger developer, and it's going to help optimize your workflow along the way. Let's dive into the episode. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Code with Josh. If you're new here, you guessed it, I'm Josh. And that's right, in today's episode, we're going to be exploring anonymous functions. If you haven't used them yet, that's fine, right? Take it slow. It's something we're introducing you to now. And before I dive into today's episode, guys, I have just launched my extended version of my handcrafted Python guide. And this time, it has a bonus Git extension. It's my Git starter pack that's going to help you get started with not just Python, but also Git today. It's the first link in the description. Head on down there and grab yourself a copy. It's the same guidebook I give to all my students on the first day of class, and you can use this through your Python journey. Now, Lambda is a bonus feature, so it's not on there, right? This is an advanced topic for you today. How I like to do my episodes is I like to create material that breaks things down for you guys, because that's what I'm good at, breaking down tech jargon into easier terms. And then I like to jump over into VS Code and show you some examples. Today's episode might be a little bit shorter, but I'm sure you guys are going to learn something new. Let's head over into the material. So as I introduced, Lambda is a special feature. And it's not just in Python, it's in other programming languages too, but it allows us to create anonymous functions, or functions on the go. An anonymous function is a special kind of function that doesn't have a real name. It's a bit like a little helper, right? And this helper, it can perform only a specific task, but you don't have to really name the helper, right? Which, it's just there, it's on the go. Normally we give function a name so you can use them later, but anonymous functions, we don't give them a name. So you can't really use them later. We create them on the spot and you use them on the spot. Therefore, we're using it immediately. All right, let's look at a little example here. So imagine, right, you make a normal standard function like multi-numbers. I'm up here at the top one. And we give it 2 parameters. All this function is doing is a basic expression. It's just taking your 2 parameters, x and y, and it's multiplying them together and returning that value. That's it. Too simple. What if we take that and we do the same thing in a single line of code, right? Here I can now use Lambda. Lambda is great when you have a simple expression. Nothing too advanced, nothing too complicated. Okay, that is a great time to use Lambda. So here I'm just multiplying just like so. I can then take a variable and I'm going to use my Lambda as the value to get the result. This should actually say res, not result. So up top here, we have a normal standard Python function, len. Now we've been working with functions now for weeks. That's if you've been following along with my series, Mastering the Fundamentals, which I'm going to link here, right? But a function returns a value. It allows us to use that value to do something, right? So if I have a variable called max character, and the value of that is the length of this word. Whatever the length of this word is, that's what len returns. That's the value to my variable max char. All right? Now again, if we create our own function, right, as long as we're using the return operator, then I can use my function as the value to a variable. I can use whatever I return from the function on the outside to do something with that. I can use it as the value to a variable. Right? So res is equal to whatever my function returns, which in this example, it's going to return 15. This is why we use the return operator, right? That's what a function does. Don't use print. We can't do anything with print. You return something. Let's take it a step further with Lambda. So now what if we take that and I just say multi-numbers is equal to a Lambda function, and this is what's going to happen, right? You can see that lambda is going to return something, so I can use that on the outside. I still need to call my function, but let's break apart lambda into simpler terms. So here we are. When we start off, we basically give the function a name, right? It's like a variable, but this is the name of the function. And then we say the value of this is equal to now a lambda function. The value of this variable is going to be an anonymous function. We then create our parameters separated by a colon. Whatever is after the colon, this is our expression. This is the block of code that's going to run. So an anonymous function, it's just like a normal function. It's going to take parameters and it can do something with those parameters, right? Now if we translate this, it would look something like this. Literally a variable that's value is a function, right? That's what multi-numbers is. I'm over here, all right? It's just a variable. Okay? In Lambda, using that word is just like using the word def, because def means to define. Well, Lambda is like using the word def. We're telling Python that, hey, I'm creating a function that you're going to use one time. We have our parameters, right? Those are standard, that's normal. And then the block of code that's ran, well, it's basically going to automatically return that value to you. All right, but remember we still need to create this and call the function, but now it's done in a single line of code. That's Lambda, that's it broken down. Let's take a look at this example, right? I have a function called check even, and all it's doing is returning true or false based on what the number is, right? If the number is even, it's going to return true, otherwise false. On the outside, I create my variable and the value is check even. So whatever that returns is going to be the value of res. Res equals true or res equals false. If we take it a step further with Lambda, right, I create my variable. This is the name of your function. It's not really a variable. And the value is the function body itself. Right? I'm using the Lambda keyword and then giving my parameter. I'm saying, hey, function, I'm going to give you one thing, and I'm going to refer to this thing as num. Now I'm saying if the num is divisible by 2 and the remainder left over is 0, well, that means 2 goes into that number an even amount of times. It's an even number. Now I need to call my function. That name we created can now just be used as a function name because it is. Remember that 3 is my argument. It's going to my parameter num. All right? An argument is the value to your parameter. All right, that's amazing. We took a look and we took our code and we broke that down into simpler terms with Lambda. And remember guys, these are great to use when you need a function that's only purpose is a simple expression. Now that I've broken this down for you, let's jump over into VS Code and I want to show you a popular example. Now this first challenge I'm going to show you is used in many programming journeys. And I want to take pre-existing code and I want to optimize it using Lambda and break it down even further to make it more efficient. Let's head over into VS Code. Here I have code to calculate your BMI. Now I'm not a doctor, all right? BMI means body mass index. I don't really know how they came up with that. A bunch of doctors gathered and said, hey, this means if you're underweight, normal weight, or overweight. If you want to read into it, you can Google it, right? So here I have a function called BMI, and that's doing the actual calculation itself, okay? I'm returning that calculation to use here, right? If that number is less than 18.5, I'm underweight, etc., right? And you can see that response is actually calling my BMI function. Now because BMI isn't really doing anything, I can replace this with a Lambda function, an anonymous function. How do you think I could do that? Pause the video and see if you can figure it out. I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to change all of this actually. Let's just create something called index. I'm going to get my index back, right? But first, I'm going to actually make a function called index. And I'm going to say it is a Lambda function that has 2 parameters, height and weight. What I want this to do is I want it to take the weight, just like I have the equation up top, and I'm going to divide that by my height times my height. This is the equation for BMI. This is the exact same thing as this, right? Now I have a function called index. I don't need this anymore. Let's delete that. Let's clean this up a little bit. All right. The last thing we want to do is I'm going to call res. I'm going to create a variable, and then I'm going to call my function, index. Inside index, I'm going to give it my parameters, which are now my arguments of my height and weight. Running our code, great, there we are, asking for your weight. I'm doing this in kilos, right? I'm not sure the exact conversion into imperial, but everything here is metric. So kilos, let's say we're 55 kilos. I'm not 55 kilos. And let's say your height is 1.5 meters. Enter, your weight is normal. It's doing the same thing, but we're using an anonymous function. I made that on the fly, I made that on the go, and so can you. Let's check out a few more examples that I've already prepared for you guys. All right, so in this example, I just have a basic list and I want to go through it. If the number's even, I want to append it to an even numbers list. Now this is broken down, guys. This is the most basic form, and that's okay. There are many ways to do something. Don't think that one way is the only way to achieve it. If it makes sense to you, go with that path. If you need to do something else, go that route as well. Guys, if you need this broken down even further, I have courses on this for you. Over 30 hours of content dedicated from taking you to zero all the way to knowing and mastering the fundamentals of Python. If you're interested in those courses, they're the link in the description. Head on down and check out the courses that I have available for you. Now let's create this and let's use Lambda to make this significantly shorter. Okay, so let's create that new list. Let's say even numbers. Now I've already made it here, right? But I'm going to delete this code because it's going to be more efficient. Even numbers is going to be a list, and what I want to do with this list is I want to filter something out. I'm going to talk about filter and map in a future video. Don't you worry if you haven't seen it before. Now what do I want to filter? Well, every time I go through my list, I want to apply a function to that. And I'm going to say lambda, right? I'm going to give it a number. And this number, I want to check if that number is divisible by 2, and that's a 0. Okay, so that's a function. This function is going to be applied to every element in my list, numbers. Okay, let me just move this around. Print down here, everything here is not needed anymore. Look at that, 3 lines. Run my code. There you go, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Lambda made that so much more optimized. Let's check out another example. Here's a list of numbers, and I'm trying to square those numbers and append those to a new list, right? If I make a new list called square, and I'm going to use the list constructor function this time, but this time I want to map over. Okay, I'm not using filter, I'm using map. And I'm going to apply an anonymous function to each of these, right? So I'm giving it the x parameter. And what I want it to do is I want it to multiply x by itself. That's our function in action. It needs to go through every element of our list numbers. Let's move a few things around here. We don't need any of this code anymore, and we got that all done to 3 lines of code. Let's give this a run, see how it plays out. And there you have it, folks, a list of squared numbers using lambda and the map function. That made your code, again, really well organized and optimized. Let me show you one final example of a calculator in action using just code and with lambda. So here you can see that I've made a dictionary called calculator. The key is something we can do on a calculator, right? And the value to the key is the actual mathematical expression. If I choose add, it means I'm going to give it 2 numbers, and I want lambda to add those numbers together, right? If I give lambda 2 numbers to multiply, it needs to multiply those 2. Lambda's for basic simple expressions. And you can see here that now I'm printing off, I call my dictionary, right? I'm not really calling it, okay, but I'm going to take my dictionary key. What does the dictionary key do? Dictionary key unlocks a value, and I'm giving the value a tuple, 5 and 3. If I run this, you can see the calculator in action. All of these are going to produce our output. There you have it, 8, 24, 4, and 5. That is a calculator done with only code and lambda. That's pretty amazing. Following our example here, you've seen lambda in action 4 times. Well done. That's right, guys. Today we've learned all about alpacas in the breeds. Well, no, just kidding. We've learned about lambda and anonymous functions on the go. Guys, do me a favor. Head on down and hit the like button and smash the subscribe button, as that really does help me, a growing channel, grow and reach more students around the world. So if you enjoyed today's episode, head on down and smash that subscribe button. And remember, if you're looking for my handcrafted Python guide with the Get Starter Pack, it's the first link in the description. Head on down and grab yourself a free copy that I give to all my students on the first day of class. I enjoyed having you in today's episode of Lambda with Code with Josh. That's me, right? Name of the channel. And I hope you guys found this episode beneficial. I cannot wait to see you in next week's episode. Until next time.